Good morning and welcome to Upfront with John Baptiste on AM 970 WSTX. I am your host, Norman John Baptiste, also known as Bapo. It's good to be here with you this morning. I want to start off this program by first of all giving thanks and praises to the Creator Most High Source. I had quite a revelation in my sleep, and I'm going to talk about that a little later. But I want to express publicly my gratitude for life and all the tender blessings that come along with life on planet Earth. So, thanks be to the Most High, the Creator of the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that in it is, for the gift of life and for the tender blessings that come along. I want us to begin this program this morning. We're running a little late, but the Hispanics say, "Más vale tarde que nunca." Better late than never. Um, and so I want us to, in the tradition of the season in which we are in, I want to see if we can come up with one of our local Christmas carols. And we've got our local 12-day bands that Stanley and 10 Sleepless Nights do a wonderful job. We've got some old songs from James Z. And of course, we can stretch out into Antigua, where I think it is Short Shirt who sings the song, How Will Santa Get Here? Mm. And then we have Jacob Killer Miller. The late Jacob Killer Miller of Jamaica has one about Christmas where he says to smoke up some Cali Hill. What? It's all in the vein of fun. But let's see if we can come up with a local tune, if not whatever, so we can get into the spirit of the season. Starting right here. All right. I think we got something. All right, know who this is. Can you get a Jacob Kilomila? Yeah, let's get that off. Yeah. Let's just put it in. So I can't put. It's got to be in there. I just don't have the specific name that is on there. I think it's usually on Ivy Christmas. Yeah, let's see. Okay. So, yeah. There you go. Okay, let's try something else. Okay. Let's try True Tones. Merry Christmas St. Lucian style. Okay. What's that called? True Tones? Yeah, by the True Tones. TRU. TRUs. Merry Christmas St. Lucian style. Yeah, let's see what this is. Setting our own medley. Christmas St. Lucian style? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That was this was solution step the truth of Lucia. Of course, many of you guys should know by now that I was born on the island of St. Lucia. So there is that bit of Lucian connection, Lucian culture, Lucian element to me. There is a saying that you can take the child out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the child. So maybe that's somewhat true of me that I still have a lot of Lucian in me. Although I feel like 100% Virgin Islander, but there is still, I still have some elements of Lucian culture, including welcome in this. These people go like, I'm sort of like a Caribbean person, for instance. That's why I wanted to take the time. A couple of other tunes from other parts, Caribbean, if I may. Let's see what we have here. All right, something really local. Not the enterprise people. Always ready. I'm trying to tell you. I said this people young ago, going to a certain, I don't know, really don't take myself in music. Tell you how you're important. When I guess I'm really talented. Yeah, the challenges, the need, we all at the same time. All right. There you got it, folks. I hope these few tunes can put you into the real spirit of Christmas. You know, those of you guys who tend to have some wayward thoughts, yeah, put down the weapons of destruction. Grab yourself a glass of Maurice, Sorrel, Berry, and listen to some Irish music and have yourself a good time. And we'll go beyond that as we get into our discussion here this morning. Again, folks, you are tuned in to Upfront with John Baptiste on AM 970 WSTX. I want to extend a warm, heartfelt Christmas blessing to everyone within the reach of my voice this morning, whether you're connected via social media platforms or the radio waves. Now, whatever means that you're connected to me this morning, let me just extend my personal best to you at this time of the year. I want us to seriously consider what Christmas means. Many folks reason that Christmas is a pagan festival and something that we should avoid. In place of Christmas, they will talk about African traditions that are akin to the Christmas tradition. They'll speak about Hebrew celebrations because they claim that, Christmas is of pagan origin. Well, the reality is that no matter where we live on planet Earth today, there are elements of paganism that have been woven into the social structure, the matrix, if I may. And so it's virtually impossible to remove all traces of paganism from our way of life. Because people have been interconnected throughout the ages. And this civilization didn't just begin yesteryear. As far as we know, from Christ to the present is approximately 2,000 years of human existence, human development, human civilization, human discoveries, and so many things. And even before Christ, we have a period of about some 5,000 years or more where there is recorded history of the interactions between different races, different sets on planet Earth. And when you dive a little deeper, you find out that, there is some kind of indication of civilized presence on planet Earth dating back to about 300, 400,000 years ago. We've been here for quite some time. We do understand that the universe perhaps has been in existence as far as human calculations go for approximately 5+ billion years. And we ought not to think that we had a universe sitting there with no forms of life and no part of it for the greater part of 5 billion years. And so, be it what it may, let me just share with you my personal experience growing up as a child. I looked forward to Christmas time. I looked forward to Christmas time because it was so, the activities of Christmas was so centered around family. And so as a child, I received presents at Christmas time. I look forward to that, having to open the gifts that were wrapped in all kinds of colorful paper. I'm having to tear it open and to see what gifts your parents had bought for you and kept hidden away from your eyes, your prying eyes, until Christmas morning. I look forward to In those days, we didn't have tiles on the floor, so they laid down a carpet. What's the name now? Linoleum or something like this, it was called, that they rolled out, and I love the scent of that as they rolled this out and put it on the floor. Every Christmas year, you had a new piece going down, and that was before, as a child growing up, before my parents built a concrete home. We lived in a wooden home at the time. I remember the workmanship of carpenters gone by, what they did with the windows in those homes in which we lived at the time. Every now and again, I see pictures that reflect the time, and wow, what nostalgia when you see those pictures. But anyway, it was a wonderful time. People walked through the streets singing Christmas carols, and so we would be up at about 4 o'clock in the morning, waiting for those persons to come by, where we would share with them coffee. They'd stop by the house, and they would be given coffee and other little goodies, well, in the morning, between the hours of, say, like from 4 o'clock till about 5:30, 6 in the morning. And they had different stops that they made, and people did a little bit of chit chatting. It was a time when you would hear the cries of animals being slaughtered in the neighborhood, because people were slaughtering pigs in particular, but they also slaughtered goats, sheep. That's when I came to know that when you take a sheep to the slaughter, it doesn't cry. The goats do cry, the pigs squeal and go on with a heap of noise, but the sheep do not. They go quietly. And so we tie that into scripture, and I'm going to get into all of that as we move along. But I'm just giving a little background in terms of what Christmas meant to me as a child. And so when I think of those happy days, I, in a sense, don't want to deprive the children today of such happy experiences. And it was an experience, of course. I grew up in a community that was predominantly Roman Catholic. And so the schooling process at the elementary level was woven in such a manner that the Catholic Church played a significant role in terms of the education of children in the community. And so we had all of those influences from the Catholic Church around us at the time. We sang Christmas carols even in school. We had concerts reflected around the child Jesus and the birth of the Messiah. And so this was just a big deal for us in the community, and I really enjoyed the experiences. My children got a chance to experience some of that when I took them on vacation to the island of St. Lucia when they were little tots, if I may use that expression. And so I don't want to deny children of such happy experiences around the Christmas tradition. And I want people to understand that, yes, I have perspectives that are different. I'm speaking about Christian perspectives that are a little different from what the Catholic Church propagated at the time. But nonetheless, when you put all of it in the wash, I think we all share common ideals. We hold on to common principles that are beneficial to mankind in general. Now, folks, I want to caution us. As a community here in the Virgin Islands in terms of how we approach Christmas celebration. I'm not trying to preach to anybody. I'm not a preacher. I'm not asking anybody to allow me to set for them a moral compass. No, I'm not about that. Every man has to define his way forward, make that determination. Every man must decide for himself how he chooses to live his life. And that goes for male and female as well. So no, I'm not trying to present a moral compass here. But I want to say that I find that we are so given to excess in terms of how we celebrate. And it is my humble opinion that we need to put the brakes somewhat. When I see young people not being well clad, if I may use that expression, gyrating, going on with all kinds of moves, hey, I say, Take it easy. Let's not overindulge. Let's not go too far. The same thing holds true for drinking. You're having a couple of drinks, but you should know how to control that. When you reach a point where it becomes excessive, hold on. So because we don't want people getting drunk behind the steering wheel and getting into accidents that claim lives, we certainly want to avoid these things. We don't want persons who get behind the steering wheel being drunk, inebriated, stopped by police, and having to suffer the consequences of getting a ticket, perhaps even getting the driver's license revoked if you get into just a little fender bender. So we want to make sure that, as we celebrate Christmas, we don't become excessive, especially in behavior that appears to be degrading. We don't want to do that. It's not a time for us to engage in acts of violence. I noticed that, as we approach the Christmas season, not just here in the Virgin Islands, but across the chain of islands, you hear of an increase in crimes, whether it be robberies, breaking into people's homes and their vehicles. Even when people go out shopping, sometimes they park their vehicle and people try to get into the vehicles to get a hold of their valuables. We want to say, put the brakes on that. Okay? And now, folks, I want us to take a deeper dive into the whole Christmas celebration that we often take for granted. Christmas is a date that has been chosen by the Roman Catholic Church to celebrate the birth of the Messiah, Yeshua, whom we know as Jesus Christ. And people talk about conspiracy theories and things that perhaps don't add up, and how the Bible might have been tampered with and all this sort of thing. I don't disclaim that the Bible perhaps has been mistranslated in some parts, and perhaps even deliberately tampered with. I understand that there is a slave Bible, and I have seen a copy of what is referred to as the slave Bible, where they made some changes so as to pull wool over the eyes of enslaved Africans. I've seen that. And so I understand that these things did take place. But when you look at the bulk of information presented in the Bible, and you get to the nuggets, you go to the book of Genesis, and Genesis chapters 1 and 2 consist of several layers. It's not as simple as people think. In Genesis chapter 1, when we see a creation of mankind, and that creation story is separate and apart from the creation story in Genesis chapter 2, where you have the pair of Adam and Eve. So there is Adam in a general sense, and then you have Adam specific. That's why, Jesus Christ is sometimes referred to as the second Adam, because the first Adam failed us. That first Adam in the Garden of Eden was meant to have been an example for us, to show us the way of the Most High, the way of source, so that we could live lives that are acceptable in the eyes of source. But that first Adam failed. He and the first Eve. And that, again, I want to mention that pair in Genesis chapter 2 is not the same in terms of the general population of Adam in the book of Genesis chapter 1. And so we have to make that distinction. Now, when as you go into Genesis chapter 3, where that first Adam pair fails us, there is a prophecy there where the Most High says that he will put enmity between the woman and the seed of the woman. Adam is right there, Eve next to him. The Most High is having a conversation with them about transgression, what they've done, the act of disobedience. Satan is right there in the midst of that discussion, reviewing what has been done that is wrong and unacceptable. And the Most High, when he addresses Satan, he doesn't say that he's going to put enmity between Satan and the man's seed, but enmity, an adversarial relationship between the seed of the woman and the seed of Satan. And that's deep. That's very deep. But that is one of the prophetic utterances concerning the coming of the Messiah. And then, folks, we move from there. We go into further into the book of Genesis. I think it is in Genesis chapter 12, where the Most High pronounces to Abraham that in his seed, all the families of the earth shall receive the blessings. Not just the Jews or the Arabs or the Germans or Africans or West Indians, all families of earth, excluding none, shall receive blessings through the seed of Abraham. And so Abraham continues his journey following the directions of the Lord Most High, and he's asked to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. And that's the time when he goes to Mount Moriah with his son Isaac to have the sacrifice, and in the process, as he pulls the knife, an angel stops him, and a ram caught in the thicket is given as a substitute. Now that was just to test Abraham, to see how much he confided in the Creator Most High, how much he believed in the Creator Most High. And so he's stopped, he's given a substitute, which is a ram caught in a thicket, and so he proceeds to sacrifice that ram, and not his son, his only son, Isaac, at the time. But again, that was just foreshadowing. Now there was coming a time when Messiah would come upon the earth and to become a sacrifice for all of mankind, not for some, but for all of mankind. And then we take it from there as we proceed, and we come to the book of Exodus and Deuteronomy. Moses speaking to the Hebrews, and that's another huge piece of literature that you have to dive deep to understand some of what's happening there. But anyway, as presented to us, Moses is now addressing Israel, and he tells them that there is coming a time when the Lord, source, will raise unto them a prophet like himself, Moses, and that's the one they will have to listen to. And again, that's a prophecy. Prophetically, Moses is speaking about the Messiah, Yeshua. And then we go from that, and we touch upon several books of the Old Testament that have references to the Messiah, especially the book of Psalms, loaded with references. In the book of Psalms, we were actually given a depiction of what happens at the time of the crucifixion. Now, folks try to make you believe that this is all a conspiracy put together by men. This is all poppycock. It's hogwash. You have different writers writing in different parts, and they all harmonize when it comes to the prophetic word about the Messiah. But we go from there and we go into the book of Isaiah and the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah in particular says that the Creator Most High would raise unto Israel a righteous branch, and this is his name whereby he shall be called. The Lord, our righteousness. The Lord, our righteousness would be his name. And then Isaiah more profoundly speaks of the coming Messiah. He speaks about a virgin giving birth to a son, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, etc. And then in Isaiah 53, he gives us the picture of the suffering Messiah, where he says, he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray, and the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. A man despised and rejected, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. He has no beauty that we should desire him. In other words, he doesn't come with stunning good looks that we should all crave after him. And yet, he was the chosen one sent to us. And then we move from Jeremiah and Isaiah, and we touch upon some others of the minor prophets who speak about Messiah, and Messiah is coming, and we get to the book of Malachi, where it is said that, before Messiah comes, the messenger will be sent before him to prepare the way. That's all in the Old Testament. And then we get to the New Testament. And I'm not going to get into all of what Paul writes about the Messiah. But I think a few things are in order. In the book of Matthew, we see that the Messiah is born. And he's born of the seed of woman, because Joseph had not yet slept with his wife, who was espoused to him when she was found to be pregnant. And people want to understand how this happens. That was a Jewish tradition, that a young lady would be espoused to a man, but the man has to go and prepare a place where they can live. And so during that interim period of time, the young woman remains with her parents. And so it's not unusual that Joseph had not slept with his wife, and she was found to be with child. And he was considering to secretly, quietly put her away because he didn't want a scandal. When an angel appeared to him, he said, "Hey, don't be afraid to take the woman as your wife, because the seed in her is a seed that has been conceived through workings of Holy Spirit. Life force beyond our human comprehension, becoming active in the woman's womb to produce offspring. That offspring, of course, is none other but the Messiah." So Matthew gives us a picture of that fulfillment, going back to the prophetic word in Genesis chapter 3. I think it's Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. We have that. And then there are several incidents in the book of Matthew, in the book of Mark, where signs of messiahship is clearly demonstrated by the Messiah. But the most profound to me is when you get to the book of John. In the book of John, it begins in a similar manner as the opening verses of the book of Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the book of John, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness to the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not the light, but he was sent to bear witness to the light. That was the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believed in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of man, but of God. And the word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. The glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. For the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Yeshua HaMashiach, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world. For God so loved the world that he gave us his only begotten Son, that whosoever, none excluded, whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And then the Messiah declares that I have come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. But the Messiah gave us commandments that we should love one another. We should bless those who curse us. We should love our enemies. We should pray for those who despitefully use us and abuse us. The Messiah's entire life was about exercising love, compassion, empathy, and sympathy unto all men, none excluded. Even his message to the thieves on the cross when he was being crucified, even his prayer for mankind when he was being crucified. His prayer was simply, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He said to us that if a brother should offend you throughout the day, 70 times 7, and he comes to you and asks you for forgiveness, forgive him. Not very easy, folks. But that's the message of the Messiah who came to us to redeem us, mankind, from the curse of sin. And he was tempted in all points as we are tempted, but he did not give in to temptation. He was able to withstand temptation and not do anything wrong. What does that tell us? He, being the second Adam, who came to be an example unto us, to show us how to live life righteously, that tells us that if we really put our minds to it, we can live life righteously. We can learn to forbear, to forgive. We can learn to be kind and compassionate and to be considerate when we deal with each other. And folks, we're far from that, We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. I mean, just look at how we deal with each other. Just in this little corner of the world, in the Virgin Islands, see how we talk about each other, how we talk to each other. See what we say about each other. And it is not characteristic and unique to the Virgin Islands. Across the length and breadth of the Caribbean, look at how we deal with each other, how we think of each other. Look at how some of us just like to put ourselves above, high on a pedestal, and think we're so much better than other people. And we like to look down upon our others. We have a mindset of just grabbing everything. We want to take, we want to have everything for ourselves and leave nothing for others. Where the Bible tells us it's more blessed to give than to receive. But we have a gimme, 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 gimme mentality. A take mindset. That's not the way of abundant life. And so, folks, I thought that, I had said that, I'm not going to even come to the radio program this morning. But truthfully, I had an experience in my sleep. I received a 2-word message, 2 words. And I decided, and of course I was directed to check it out on the internet. And so I did. Reluctantly, I said, I don't want to go check the 2 words. These 2 words don't really seem to resonate. But I went and I checked it. And there it was. The 2words.com. And when I went into it, it's like, hey, I have been given some messages, some directive, not to preach. I haven't seen any indication that I'm asked to preach. I'm not a preacher. I'm sharing information that I have been able to glean here and there with you, but I'm not a preacher. And so I said, let me just come out and have some discourse this morning. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Senator Mr. John Baptiste.
Good morning to you. Thanks, and same to you.
Yeah. Well, I heard you read now some scripture there.
I don't know. Actually, these are some things that I have committed to memory.
You can hold them for memory for a while. It's good, man.
Yeah. So if I missed any detail, it's because I'm not reading from a book or anything. This is coming straight up.
The one with the logo, you won't read it from nothing?
No, this is what I've committed to memory.
Oh, yeah, you're good. But that is how do you see that? How is your understanding of that?
My understanding of it,
Yeah.
my understanding of it is that all of us mankind have a spiritual genesis. And so when Christ comes to exemplify all that source wants for us, he's an example. And so, but he obviously has preeminence that before Abraham was, he is. So he has preeminence, but he shows us that, we ought to focus on things spiritual more than things physical, because the spiritual has preeminence. And I think that's what, in that first chapter of the book of John, that's some of the highlight of it there, that we should sort of like abandon to some extent the desires of the flesh and to lean towards the things of the spirit.
So in the part of like, I guess, you understand the doctrine of the logos, you understand that?
Yes, the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not. Yes, go ahead.
Do you extend it to humanity? Because you memorize something there, I know you're familiar with the basically stating it where you feel like the made those to become sons of God, not part of the something like that.
Right. Born of the spirit, but not of flesh, not of woman, not of man, but of the spirit.
And that's extended to humanity that follow the logos, the more prominent logos, right?
That's what I want to believe.
Yeah. And then you also went over to Matthew, I think in Matthew 5, where you feel like, I think there's the Beatitude, I think the certain extent with Beatitude is not just Beatitude, but cause pray for those that despitefully, you know the part.
Right, yes. To love your enemy, to bless those who curse you, and to pray for those who despitefully use you and abuse you.
Have you ever considered that within that chapter that there's two principles at work there? The one with the eye to an eye, and the one that turning the cheek.
Absolutely. And the way how I view this is that we do have different dispensations. I don't.
You have what different one?
Different dispensations of time and human engagement. In other words, something might be relevant in a particular point in time, but at another point in time when mankind has become elevated, if I may, developed to a certain point, these things no longer factor in. For example, there was a time when it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Somebody did something, you put them to death. But we've come to a point where Messiah has been revealed unto us, where we've been told that the kingdom of heaven is within us, where the love of the Lord, the Most High, it rests within us. And so clearly, once we reach that point in time, it's a time for the exercise of love and peace and harmony, and a set aside of hatred and variance, etc.
If I could ask you, Mr. John Baptiste, should we predicate that to the Creator? I mean, you said there was a time we were allowed. Can we really use that policy or that way of reconciling certain difficult situations in terms of scripture?
No, the way how I see that, for example, because mankind, for lack of a better expression, fell from grace and began going down a slippery slope. Once the Messiah or the Creator came in to intervene and to save mankind from his rotten intentions, his bad ways, you take the individual where they're at and you try to work with them, because they have to be prepared so you can get them out of the bad situation. So you meet them where they're at. Not that the Creator Most High supported slavery, not that he supported divorce, but because of the mindset at the time, and it will take some time to get mankind out of that mindset of draconian policies, So the creator worked with mankind from that point on towards the future, being tolerant of his bad ways whilst trying to bring about transformation and reformation.
I heard about that logic and that reasoning. I mean, that was like in the face of like, for instance, he said, okay, he allowed that what a human being, try to meet human being at their level. If I understand you, try to meet human being at their level. That's what you're saying.
I think the creator, that the Messiah exemplified that when he said to the Jews when they spoke about marrying and remarrying, he said that the creator did not support divorce initially, but because of the hardness of men's hearts, Moses permitted a writing of divorce. But the intention of the creator was to have a union, a covenant agreement between two individuals that was indefinite, perpetual, if I may.
Well, then I ask you, Mr. Baptiste, how would you reconcile that too? I think within the gospel, right, there's a part with the resurrection, where they say the sons of all the children of the resurrection are not given to marriage. They are like more like the angels.
Mhm.
If you're saying that marriage is a part of the divine plan,
Mhm.
how is the restoration or the resurrection those who are basically survived the cataclysm
Mhm.
or the apocalyptic situation
Mhm.
are not allowed to be married anymore? How
Mhm.
would you reconcile that?
Okay, the only thing I can say about it is that marriage is given for a
Marriage is
physical
given to
for to mankind on a physical plane. But once you've transcended the physical plane and you've gone into another dimension, which is spiritual, there is no need for marriage. There is no need for even the miracles that we see. There is no need for the prophetic. There is no need for healing, mercies, etc. On that spiritual plane. So in the physical dimension, even though people say as above, so below, as without, so within, the reality is that the dynamics on the spiritual plane are not the same as the dynamics on the physical plane.
so what was the purpose of us being submerged or plunged into the fleshly, the carnal nature if we understanding the flesh and the carnal is just what? Temporary?
Temporary, and it's
And for what purpose?
it is there for so that we can grow, develop ourselves spiritually, so we can mature spiritually, so that we can learn. Earth existence is a learning experience where we are being tested to see how much metal we have that we can.
Well, I have a different perspective.
Let me hear yours.
Ain't something in stone, right? But I guess you're talking about familiar with scripture. You ever read the Galatians Paul, that little epistle? You ever
Yes, I've read the epistle of Paul to the Galatians.
I mean, the whole epistle is beginning to the end. I think it's very inspirational, but I believe the concept of the doctrine that kind of behind will explain where we have like a kind of discrepancy in terms of where are you using that God allows certain things and so forth. I
Hmm.
think that would explain it. Like, for in particular, he said that Abraham had two sons,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
One from a bondwoman and one from a free woman. You familiar with that?
Yes, especially he mentions that
How was your understanding of that?
um, what Paul does there, from my point of view, is that he's using physical elements to explain spiritual elements. In other words, the concept of the bond woman and the free woman having children was to show that, notwithstanding being differently situated opposition, yet he shows us that There is a child of promise. And when the child of promise comes, the blessings go to one and all. In other words, there is no division through the child of promise.
And I hear you, you're saying that it's spiritual, but in that same chapter, Paul went back to say, like, it is like an allegory or another type, right? Okay. But he gives specifically, say, like, the bondwoman who is Hagar or Hagar represents Mount Sinai,
Right.
given of the law. He also said that that law lend itself unto slavery and bondage. So how would you explain that?
That is because the law, that law he, the law that he speaks of given on Sinai was really meant to be a schoolmaster to lead us, or a teacher to lead us to Messiah.
Who gave